My name is Professor Rufus Sha'Ato, Deputy Center Leader, Environmental Standards at the Center for Innovation in Procurement, Environment and Social Standards. My details are there, contact details, my email and my phone number. I would like to warmly welcome you to the Advanced Proficiency Certificate in Environmental Standards. This course is a specific project capacity enhancement course in the drive by the federal government of Nigeria for professionalization of environmental management practice in both the public and private sectors of the Nigerian economy for sustainable development in the country. It is a National Universities Commission NUC initiative supported by the federal ministries of Environment, Finance, and Women Affairs respectively, and is financed by a facility from the World Bank. The objectives of the course are as follows. One is to enhance your understanding, knowledge, and application of the international environmental and social best practice, especially the World Bank safeguard policies and environment and social framework. Two, to enhance your capability to identify and manage environmental and social issues in projects, particularly in accordance with the ESF. Three, to enhance your ability to meet and respond to terms of reference of the environmental and social impact assessment, and to carry on efficient and high quality ESIA studies. It will also introduce you to important current and emerging environmental issues and broad-based selected environmental topics and concepts. It will also improve your grasp of the scientific and technological dimensions of environmental issues and improve your proficiency in your environmental studies and practice. At the end of this course, you should be fully knowledgeable of the environmental and social standards of the Environment and Social Framework, ESF, of the World Bank. You should be familiar with the application of these standards in specific sectors and under specific topics. You should be familiar with the scientific and technological concepts selected environmental topics, I beg your pardon. And you should be more proficient as an environmental management personnel. I will be taking you in only module 1 of the course, and this comes under the topic overview of environmental sustainability and the environmental and social management framework, ESMF. At the end of this module, which is the first, like I said, where we are talking about environmental sustainability, you should be able to, one, define sustainability, environmental sustainability, and sustainable development as technical terms. You should be able to trace the historical evolution of sustainable development as a concept today. You should be able to name the 3 pillars of sustainable development or sustainability. You should also be able to explain the 4 concepts of sustainable development and enumerate the 17 SDGs with their specific goals and targets. You should be able to also discuss Nigeria and World Bank in the context of the SDGs. So let's watch this video. Try to raise the volume.
So put simply, sustainability is about our kids and our grandkids. How we live today so that they can thrive. Future generations can also have a good life. Our planet has many resources that we depend on for food, for housing, and many of those resources can replenish. You can cut down a tree and grow new trees. You can catch fish and there will be more fish. But that only works if you do it at a rate that these systems can replenish. We call that the replacement rate. You can think of it as a bathtub, and you're draining the bathtub and filling the bathtub at the same rate. And if you do that, then the level of the water should be able to stay stable. We call that equilibrium. It's not that you're not using any resources, you are, but you're doing it at a rate that the systems are able to stay somewhat steady. Right now, and over the past few decades, what we're seeing is that we are consuming resources much faster than the replacement rate. And the result of that, draining the bathtub faster than filling it, is that those levels are going down. We're seeing fisheries disappearing and other ocean life. We're seeing forests disappearing. Of course, everyone is familiar with the impacts of climate change and, other impacts of this level of consumption, plastics in the ocean, all of these problems. So ultimately, sustainability is about understanding how all of this is connected, understanding that when you make a decision to buy a smartphone, you are impacting someone's life on the other side of the planet who's involved in mining the materials to put in that smartphone. So sustainability is about systems thinking. One of the other big frameworks that we use to talk about sustainability is the 3 E's. In business, we call that the triple bottom line. Some people call it the 3 legs of the stool. And that's environment, economy, and equity. And it's not just about understanding that we need to manage all of those. It's understanding how they're connected. So if you only look at short-term economic profit, then you're not going to end up with a thriving economy in the long term. If you're only looking at conserving the environment without thinking about economics and understanding, how people are making their livelihood, you also may not end up with a thriving society. And if you aren't looking at equity, you're going to end up with a few people that have most of the resources and many people who are hungry and not living a good life. And that's not really a successful human society either. So sustainability is really about addressing all of those and understanding the connections between them.
I hope you found the video educative. Back to our discussion. You just watched a video on sustainability as a concept. Now we look at environmental sustainability. Environmental sustainability is the practice of using natural resources responsibly to meet present needs without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. That has become like a textbook definition. And that's what we're going to run away with, and we'll continue to look at it in that manner. It involves balancing economic growth, as you saw in the video, social equity, and environmental protection. These 3 have to go together. Now, key aspects of environmental sustainability include the following. Resource conservation. That means we should efficiently use resources like water, energy, and materials to minimize waste and depletion. 2, pollution reduction. We should minimize the release of harmful substances into the environment, including air, water, and soil pollution. We should work towards climate change mitigation. This is by reducing greenhouse gas emissions to slow down climate change and its impacts. Next, we maintain our biodiversity by protecting ecosystems and species to maintain biodiversity and ecological balance, and to practice agriculture sustainably using farming practices that promote soil health, water conservation, and reduce reliance on harmful chemicals, particularly pesticides. Waste reduction and recycling. This means we should minimize waste generation and maximize recycling and composting efforts to reduce how much waste we pass into the environment. Now we want to look at sustainability and sustainable development. The Brundtland Report, also known as Our Common Future, was published in 1987 by the World Commission on Environment and Development. This report introduced the concept of sustainable development. It also outlined the guiding principles for achieving it. The report highlighted the 3 fundamental components of sustainable development. These are environment, social equity, and economic growth. You saw this in the video, so we will not dwell on this. And so, the 3 pillars of sustainability or sustainable development came to be. We have the social equity, environmental protection, and economic growth. These are informally referred to as the 3 pillars or the 3 P's of sustainability: people, planet, and prosperity. Okay? Now, the 4 key concepts that drive sustainable development are as listed here. The first is the concept of needs, but in particular, the essential needs of the world's poor, to which overriding priority should be given. What that means is that we tackle only what is a need, particularly an essential need. We have the concept of limitations. This is imposed by the state of technology that is available to us and the social organization of the environment's ability to meet present and future needs. The third key concept is the concept of intergenerational and intra-generational equity. What is happening with a certain generation, what is happening between generations. And the fourth one being the concept of re-engineering of socio-economic systems. This means translating principles of environmental sustainability into operational terms and guidelines. And two, redesigning the environment assessment architecture and related processes to give effect to these new rules of the game as per sustainability. The historical evolution of sustainable development. I have listed here the timelines for how we arrived at where we are today. From 1972, when the UN Conference on Human Environment and Development held in Stockholm, to 2015, when the United Nations adopted the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, which have 169 associated targets, and an agenda 2030 for global action for the next 15 years to have us develop sustainably. These are the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Goal number 1, no poverty. Goal number 2, zero hunger. Goal number 3, good health and well-being. Goal number 4, quality education. Gender equality, clean water and sanitation, affordable and clean energy, decent work and economic growth, industry, innovation and infrastructure, reduced inequality, sustainable cities and communities, responsible consumption and production, climate action, life below water, life on land, peace and justice, with strong institutions and partnerships to achieve the goals. Okay? Again, I want us to watch this video.
2016, both countries and a part of the United Nations agreed to a program that aims to make our world more sustainable before the year 2030. It contains 17 sustainable development goals that are a call to action for everyone. In order to get a better understanding of this, we will take a closer look. Ready? Let's start. 1. No poverty. It aims at ensuring that no one has to live in extreme poverty and has access to basic human needs like food, health, sanitation, and education. 2. Zero hunger means that everyone worldwide must have sufficient access to safe and nutritious food that has been made in a sustainable way. 3. Good health and well-being focuses on reducing child mortality and extending life expectancy by realizing better and more accessible health facilities for everyone. Today, still 5 to 6 million children die before the age of 5. This must be reduced significantly. 4. Quality education. It aims at providing equal access to education so that everyone has the opportunity to learn and develop and increase the chance of a prosperous life. 5. Gender equality means that both men and women should have the same rights and opportunities. This is one of the basic principles for a peaceful and sustainable world. Unfortunately, in practice, it turns out to be a difficult aspect because there are still a lot of differences between the two of them. 6. Clean water and sanitation focuses on providing the basic facilities for everyone in order to increase the level of hygiene so that the number of infections and deaths can be reduced dramatically. 7. Affordable and clean energy. It aims at creating an environment where everyone has access to renewable, safe, and widely available energy sources, enabling people to live, work, and develop their societies. 8. Decent work and economic growth means that every individual should have the opportunity to work under good conditions in order to ensure economic growth without harming the environment. 9. Industry, innovation, and infrastructure focuses on the construction of roads, access to transport, and the required energy and communication technology that can promote development opportunities for education and healthcare. Before we continue, I would really appreciate it if you hit the like and subscribe button in order to support me and to help me to grow my channel. So, let's move on. 10. Reduce inequality. It's aimed at reducing income inequalities between countries, but also between people within countries. 11. Sustainable cities and communities. Focuses on the development of cities and finding the right balance between social, economic, and environmental aspects for everyone. This should ensure that people do not end up in slums and have the opportunity to live in a well-built house. 12. Responsible consumption and production means that the sustainable and efficient use of the available resources must be ensured worldwide. As the world population continues to grow, it is essential that we produce and consume smarter. We make more with less. 13. Climate action is aimed at combating climate change by reducing emissions and promoting the generation and use of renewable energy. In every country, millions of people are experiencing the consequences of global warming, and this will increase in the future. It must be avoided. 14. Life below water focuses on the conservation of the oceans and their biodiversity. Oceans cover over 3/4 of the Earth's surface and are the engine of our global system. They affect the weather, climate, food security, and the air we breathe. 15. Life on land is aimed at protecting, restoring, and using our ecosystem sustainably. Forests cover about 30% of the land area, are important for food security, and essential in the fight against climate change. 16. Peace, justice, and strong institutions means that there should be more attention for peace, security, and justice. Today, corruption and theft still cost countries billions a year. This money could also have been invested in education, infrastructure, healthcare, and poverty reduction. 17. Partnerships for the goal. The last goal is aimed at getting everyone in the world to take action and work together to make the Sustainable Development Goals a success. Together we are able to work towards a safe and sustainable future for everyone. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, make sure to subscribe and check my channel.
Thank you. I think this has thrown more light on the 17 SDGs. So we'll exit now and continue our discourse. Again, I hope you found the video educative enough. Now, the SDGs are tied to the Agenda 2030, which is a plan of action for the 5 Ps. The 5 Ps here: people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships. It also seeks to strengthen universal peace in the larger freedom of the world. The SDGs have, like I said earlier, 169 targets. I will advise you in your private study to find those targets attached to each of the goals. Okay? But by and large, they seek to realize the human rights of all and to achieve gender equality and the empowerment of all women and girls. They are integrated and indivisible and balance the 3 dimensions of sustainable development we saw earlier: the economic growth, social equity, and also the environmental protection. I'd like to point out here that our country, Nigeria, has keyed into the SDGs properly, and the government has continued to demonstrate its commitment to the SDGs promise through leadership and ownership of the implementation process. One way of doing this is the provision of technical support to the Office of the Senior Special Advisor to the President of SDGs, which is an effort to ensure that planning and budgeting for development activities in the country are done within the framework of the SDGs. That tells us that the country has keyed in properly, and we're looking forward to the benefits. Of course, the SDGs data mapping exercise and conducting of baseline surveys, whose results have been useful in developing baseline indicators for SDGs implementation, monitoring, and reporting in the country, has been done, and they are still ongoing. Okay. The World Bank also has a role in monitoring the SDGs. It is important to know that the SDGs were formulated with strong participation from the World Bank Group, and these SDGs are fully consistent with the bank's own twin goals of ending poverty and building shared prosperity in a sustainable manner. So you find that what the World Bank does drives the SDGs as well. World Bank's own goals also align closely with the SDGs just as structures, organizational structures are aligned by a thematic group. What this means is that if you take the SDGs up to 17, you find that the structural organization of the World Bank is geared towards realizing these SDGs as well. Okay. Of course, the World Bank's environmental and social framework, through its environmental and social standards, are fully aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay. I would like to skip this. You are getting this information. You will be able to look at this in details. But altogether, the World Bank is formally engaged with the monitoring of the 42 of the 230 indicators that are used to monitor and measure the success of realizing the SDGs. The indicators cover a wide range of topics in which the World Bank has expertise, and these include poverty and inequality, social protection, gender equality, financial access, remittances, health, energy infrastructure, amongst other things. Okay. Now, these are questions that I expect you as participants to take time and look at and prefer responses. Okay. There are 10 questions. And there's also a discussion task. We have seen that sustainability was mounted on 3 pillars. But the new thinking has brought in the 4th pillar, the human angle. I want you in your various groups to discuss the importance of this additional pillar in sustainability. The next topic we want to consider is principles of environmental standards. Under this overview, I want us to turn our attention to principles of environmental standards. In this session, at the end of it, you should 1, fully understand the concept of environmental standards and what it is. 2, know the purpose of environmental standards. 3, know how environmental standards are set and by whom. 4, know the basis on which environmental standards are set. 5, understand the contextual relation to environmental standards. 6, know the difference between guidelines and standards. And 7, know the different types of standards. Okay? Now, environmental standards are administrative regulations or civil law or rules implemented or put in place for the treatment and maintenance of the environment in a healthy condition. An environmental quality standard is a limit for environmental disturbances, in particular from ambient concentration of pollutants and waste. That's when we're talking about pollution. That determines the maximum allowable degradation of the environmental medium, water, air, soil, and so on. The limit will tell you how far you could go and we will think you are still in order. Okay? Thirdly, environmental standards are typically set by governments and can include prohibition of specific activities, mandating the frequency and methods of monitoring, and requiring permits for the use of land or water. Okay? Standards differ depending on the type of environmental activity under consideration. But generally, the basis for the standard is determined by scientific opinions from varying disciplines, the views of the general population, and the social context. That is to say, the basis is usually multidisciplinary. As a result, the process of determining and implementing the standards is usually complex and is set within legal, administrative, or private contexts. Okay? The bottom line is that environmental standards should preserve nature and the environment, protect against damage, and repair past damage caused by human activity. I've provided a reference which you can follow and get more information. Now, guidelines and standards. We shall look at this to know where the different lies. Guidelines provide a basis for protecting human health from adverse effects of pollution and for eliminating or minimizing contaminants that are known or are likely to be hazardous to human health and well-being. Guidelines. The guideline value usually is the maximum permissible concentration of a pollutant that guarantees an acceptable health condition or environmental quality. Guidelines represent the best scientific judgment at a particular time or moment. This judgment is based upon the combined results of epidemiological and toxicological research. Mind you, I say guidelines represent the best scientific judgment at a particular time, so it can change with time depending on available scientific knowledge. Now, environmental standards, on the other hand, are aimed at protecting human health, and they are usually based upon guideline values, which are considered within their context of prevailing exposure levels and environmental, social, economic, and cultural conditions. I may add, sometimes political considerations can be part of this cocktail. A standard is usually a value fixed by the authorities. In general, it is enshrined in a legal regulation and therefore has legal force. So you find that the standard will have a defined value. Okay? Although the standard is based upon a guideline, it also takes into account technical, economic, social, cultural, and political aspects. Okay? Feasibility is the most important criterion in this respect. And what do we mean? If you have a standard, is it feasible? Is it attainable? Can it be done? Okay? Economic aspects will invariably look at the cost of applying the standard. So sometimes economics will make us tamper or tinker with the standard as defined by the scientists. Note that not all standards are legally binding. Okay? Standards targeted at improving the quality of products or processes, such as the ISO standards for environmental care systems, of which environmental auditing is an important part, and life cycle analysis, are part of schemes to which companies voluntarily agree to. Sometimes when they weigh the economic cost of abiding by that standard, they can appeal for some adjustments. In setting guidelines, I adapted this from Lupin's Encyclopedia of Life Support Systems. I tried to get to that. We start from a point of non-pollution, and we keep increasingly moving to the polluted segment of the environment as it's getting wider. You know? So if you have a guideline, it's usually a value based upon available toxicological information. And usually it has to do with some safety factor. You want human health to be protected. But you can move from this little level of pollution or contamination, as it were, to a higher level where guidelines may be set at a higher level from unpolluted level based on political considerations. For instance, as I see later, you may have a guideline value for a country like America, which we can't attain here in Nigeria. So for reasons of setting, we can have a value that is slightly higher than theirs. And we say, well, for us, we can accommodate this. Okay? And it goes all the way. But certainly it gets to a level where if the pollution reaches alarming levels, then nobody will permit that to stay. It should be avoided at any cost. I think I'll leave it at that. Okay. Now, types of environmental standards. There are 3 types to consider here. You have the ambient standards, you have emission standards, and you have new source performance standards. I also refer you to the World Bank Pollution and Prevention Amendment Handbook. You will find more details there. This is an online course. We have limited time as it were. Let's take on a bit of ambient standards. Ambient standards set maximum allowable levels of the pollutant in a receiving medium, air, water, or soil, or even in a room like in our studio, in the classroom, in the lecture hall. Okay? An ambient standard for a pollutant aims at the protection of the health effects of different levels of exposure and the protection of the ecosystem, like discharges into the stream, emissions into a theater, for instance. Okay? More focus is now provided to the control of less obvious but more persistent pollutants, such as heavy metals, polyfluorinated biphenyls or PCBs, and the like, which are accumulating and essentially not biodegradable. These are some of the chemical contaminants that can cause us harm, and if we don't regulate their presence in our environment, we will eventually pay for it with our health. Okay? But other levels, like you saw in the last slide, are based on specification of what effects on human health, the human health and the environment the authorities wish to avoid. Will it cause immediate death? Will it cause birth defects in the long run, and so on and so forth? And also specification of pollutant concentrations causing the harm that you are trying to avoid. Okay? We turn to emission standards now. These set maximum amounts of pollutant that may be released by a plant or other source. When a plant here, we are talking about an industrial plant, like a cement manufacturing plant, a brewery, a refinery, and so on and so forth. Emission standards are expressed either by concentrations or by increasing use of load-based standards, which reflect more directly on the overall objective of reducing the total load in the environment. Okay? Emission standards may be established in terms of what can be achieved with available technology, which is known as technology-based standards, or the impacts of the emissions on the ambient environment. For example, dust that is issuing out from a cement plant. Does the plant have the technology to contain the dust and reduce what it releases? If in its setting it does not have that technology, how much of it are you going to permit for the plant to release into the atmosphere next? Technology-based standards are based on knowledge of what can be achieved with current equipment, what I just said, and practices. It can be best available technology, best practicable technology, best available technology, not entailing excessive cost. This is where the economics comes in. I gave you the example of a cement manufacturing plant. If the cost of installing a dust scrubber will eat into their profits too much, you may permit them to emit higher levels of dust than ordinarily you would permit, on the ground that in the environment what you are permitting may not be as harmful as it may be in other settings. I hope that is a manageable example. Then you have new source performance standards. If a new plant comes on board, how much emissions will you permit it based on the technology it has acquired? That's okay, that's all there.